Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be showing off the new Stardust archetype, if you will. Also, it's kind of a shooting majestic star dragon, basically the new boss synchro monster that just got announced a day ago, which is a new synchro monster that lets you banish your opponent's cards instead of negating a destruction effect. You can negate whatever you need to and also banish the card, which I would say is definitely an improvement on Stardust Dragon. Now, this is going to be a super simple 2-card combo, and I want to explain this one really quick because that's kind of the title and point of the video. 2-card new boss Stardust synchro combo. So what you need to have is either Foolish or Illuminate, and you need to have Stardust Synchro. It's a 2-card combo, but it can be a lot of combination of these. There's a lot of variance with this. You can actually even droplet and drop both those cards into the graveyard. Let's say if your opponent happens to go first and you do need to negate things. Basically, these cards can be in the graveyard, or if you draw them, you can kind of use a droplet and then just send another to the graveyard. You don't have to have both in the graveyard because this card gets its effect once normal or special, but you will summon it. So to summon this card is pretty easy. You just have to tribute a monster, and then you get to go ahead and bring it out. If it's in your hand or graveyard, so it's either way, it gets that effect. When it's normal or special, you get to add a spell or trap that lists the Stardust Dragon in its text. Now, with the Stardust Trial, as long as you have a monster that is tributed, you just to bring it back from the graveyard for free, but it gets banished when it leaves the field. It also grants yourself a Stardust token. That's the point of it. The token's just a level 1/0/0. It doesn't really matter for the stats. It's just another card. So what you're going to do is go for the Arriving Miracle, which will then let you stack your deck. You get to place a level 1 dragon monster from your hand or deck on top of it. So basically you stack your deck for that one card, and then when you synchro summon using these 2 cards for the Stardust Dragon here, you're gonna guarantee draw this card over here, which is another one of the newer cards, granting yourself the token, and then also you will guarantee draw this card because you stacked your deck. It doesn't have to be this card, but this is just for the 2-card combo. You can do a lot of different things with this play over here. There's probably a lot more interesting Yu-Gi-Oh plays that you can do with the whole stack your deck with the level 1 dragon monster. But with Wish Converging Dragon, what you're able to do is if you draw it, you get to special summon it. And it can only you can only special summon one of them once per turn. But anyways, yeah, when you draw it, you reveal it, special summon it, and if you control level 8 or higher dragon synchro monster, you can summon another level 1 dragon monster from your deck. So it's basically almost like a glow up bulb. You get double tuners off of that one card, which actually allow for a lot of insane plays. You can go for Brotar, which is obviously a super good card that will then let you search out another card if you want to. In this case, we go for the Samsara Dragon, which will be for later plays if we want it to be there. But then we're just gonna go make the new boss monster, the Shooting Majestic Star Dragon, and excellent effect. Now, I do want to mention this thing really quick. So one thing with this whole archetype is you definitely actually do want to summon the extra monster. Let me explain why. This card goes away like Stardust Dragon. If you negate your opponent's like a one card effect, sometimes your opponent can OTK you, so it's still worth it to sometimes go for that extra like monster. In this case, the back row wasn't relevant, so it didn't really matter, and the guy just ends up rage quitting because he's probably game over. I mean, he still had this, but nonetheless, this card can attack a lot of different times. So for each Stardust Dragon and each synchro monster that's specifically listed in its text, it can make an additional attack during each battle phase. So obviously you can OTK through a lot of different monsters. It almost kind of reminds me of like Conductor Tyranno, but you don't get to flip everything face down. It has an Omni negate, which is actually pretty good. But on top of that, once per turn, we get to also negate the effect of one effect monster our opponent controls. So we can negate an effect, and then also as a quick effect, basically when your opponent does something, you get to banish it and then banish that card as well. But I got a few different plays. I'm going to show you guys a 1 versus 2 tag duel, meaning that one player basically wins 1 versus 2. So one guy's playing Light Sworn over here, not that it's really that relevant. We're really here to see the Yusei Pudo, I like the username over here, aka UES. Thank you so much for sending in the gameplay and the deck profile, which I'll give to you guys very soon here. But I want to show you guys what you can do with the deck when you open up what I would consider a little bit good. This is like more an extension of like the 2-card combo, but I had to explain that really fast because I think a lot of people want to make it, but they don't know how. They think Halki Firebrax, and I thought the same thing, but you're kind of locked into synchros at one point when you go for some of the plays, as that's one of the archetypes. It's all about synchro summoning. But nonetheless, we're also seeing a red Supernova Dragon, which has that effect where if your opponent like does a monster effect or whenever they declare an attack, you can just banish everything that they have. So not only can you make red Supernova Dragon, but you can also make a Shooting Majestic Star Dragon. I think this guy didn't know. He summoned an attack position. I think he didn't know. This is why reading is important, guys. He didn't know it could attack multiple times. So Feather Duster activated, that's going to be negated and banished via the new Shooting Majestic Star Dragon. He goes and makes a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, and once he goes for the Alistar effect, he's going to negate that. He's going to chain that negate, but then Droplet is going to go ahead and negate that. And on top of that, keep in mind, Supernova has 7k attack, and it cannot be destroyed by an opponent's card effect, and it banishes everything. So pretty much at that point, I guess you could try to Kaiju, but like he just loses out on everything. It's probably going to be game over. He also had a Called by the Grave, but this card is also going to be coming back, so giving him Kaiju, he loses either way. It didn't really matter. So that's just how powerful the deck can be. And I have one more play for you guys that'll show off a different variant of the play again. The goal of this is to kind of show you guys some of the combos here, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of different builds for this. Again, it's just like that, like I mentioned before, it's just if it's in your hand or graveyard, just special summon it by attributing just any monster, which can actually open up the doors for more plays. I was just thinking about like any Doppel variants too, where you can just special summon it since you special summon from the graveyard anyways, granting yourself 2 extra tokens. I was theory crafting way too much with like Librarian plays with this, but I also wanted to try with like TG variants, but it's pretty complex. Anyways, this is a much more simple, like cookie cutter way to go for it. And I want to also show you guys like what happens if they Kaiju it, because you know it is a monster that is susceptible to Kaiju. A lot of Synchro decks, they invest everything into that one monster, and again, the second duel showed you guys you can still make like another like card. You can make basically 2 super boss monsters in the game, and again, the reason why you want to try to make more than one is if you negate your opponent's play and they have like a follow-up against like dinos and a lot of decks, I would say on average you can still get OTK'd. So keep in mind, try to also use that effect, even if it's maybe a hand trap. When you make that one monster go away and your board is blank and you've already negated one thing, some decks will still be able to kind of compete with you, so keep that in mind as well. We also see that classic Quillbolt Hedgehog. There's also Quick Draw in the deck to extend some of your plays, just in case your opponent negates things, but you also have access to Droplets, which Droplets has that awesome ability to dump cards in your graveyard. And it's not even minus, because like I showed you guys before in the first duel, you can have just both those cards in the graveyard and just completely go off without even needing them. But obviously this is going to be game. Silent Warrior is just that massive pop. It's like the Dark Arm Dragon for the deck. When it comes out, it's usually popping like 3, which is quite nice. But now that you guys have seen it in action, let me go ahead and give you guys that deck profile. So hopping right into the deck profile over here, you guys didn't get to see Quick Draw, but he's an old school Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's just sending one monster from your hand to the graveyard, which already has awesome synergy with the deck. But if you guys want to bump up the count or make any suggestions, as this is just really early on right now, and I think a lot of people will be interested in trying out different variants. Even though he's got the Halkified Rex over here. But anyways, let's go ahead and hop right into it. So we got a Quick Draw, one of those, 2 copies of Stardust Synchron. I would almost bump all these up. Now this card, it's not once per duel, so I was thinking that you could still maybe recycle it, even though you have like 3 copies of the Foolish. It can be maybe a good idea to maybe just play 2 of them, but anyways, that's my thought. There's also Phantom Knight Hydride. You guys didn't get to see it, but if it's just used for a Synchro Summon, you can treat it as a non-tuner monster, which can be okay as well. And then we got 3 copies of the Junk Synchron. That's just so good. And then the Steam Synchron lets you synchron your opponent's turn, which can be actually pretty nasty. And then the classic Quillbolt. Then we have the Satellite Synchron, 3 copies of Junk Converter, fantastic card as well. We've got Rush Warrior, the Cyberse Synchron, the Dot Scrapper, Brotar, Unknown Synchron, and the Samsara Dragon. Lots of level 1 targets. And we also have the Red Blossoms of Underroot. So if this card's in your hand, I didn't get to talk about it, but if it's in your hand, you get to target a spell trap in each graveyard, banish them both, and then just special summon. It's just another extender potentially for the deck, as well as maybe even kind of a disruption. Then we have Valor, and then the new Wish Converging Dragon. And don't worry if you draw it, you only pretty much want to play one of these cards. I don't see any reason to play more than one. The reason why, if you draw it, which is basically a -1 anyways, you just put it from your hand to the top of the deck and you draw it again. And then we have the 1-for-1, we have the Necroid Synchron, which lets you special another Stardust Synchron monster from the extra deck, which can be cool too. Then we have Reinforcement of the Army for more of your junk plays. And then 2 copies of Avarice. Technically for me, I always feel like Avarice is a little bit of a win harder card. If I was to take the deck a little bit more seriously, I'd probably just bump up the Droplets to 3, because I just want to make my board and then OTK my opponent versus have a bunch of plays negated. Because sometimes when you try to make the plays, you never get to that point of synchroing and just getting all those monsters out, and then Avarice is just a -1, and you just can't deal with your opponent's board. That's at least how I personally feel about it, but feel free to make some other suggestions. Then we got Foolish, and then we got Reborn, 2 copies of Tuning, which can actually search out your Quick Draw as well, which is awesome. And as well as the other cards, but most of these you would want to special summon via other effects. And then we have the Stars Illuminate, one of the newer cards that lets you just start foolishing. And then we got Called by the Grave, 2 copies of Droplet, then the Arriving Miracle. Again, you can search this card out, so 1 is totally fine. And then the Scrap Iron Signal. This card unfortunately doesn't list Stardust on it. It's specifically any synchro monster. It's just like a negate anything. So if you draw, like, it's okay because it's just like negate anything turn 1. I wouldn't want to play more than 1, even though it has that awesome ability to potentially just have any negate. And then on top of that, instead of it sending to the graveyard, you get to reset the card. It's so nasty when you can get this card effect off. But if you guys want to take the deck a little bit more seriously, I would say you can run 1 Avarice, but I think if you play too many copies of Avarice, it's just a brick card. But that's just my personal take on it. I think it's a really fun deck. I would definitely think about playing more Droplets because, again, most of these cards, if you want to play even 2 copies of Trail, that's fine. And then you can just send it to the graveyard to start your combos off. And then also, yeah, Called by the Grave, fantastic card. Too bad it's at 1. I was even thinking you could maybe throw in the Crossout Designator as well, as you do have room, I would say, for Valors and Ash. Obviously Valor because level 1. But anyways, that's going to go ahead and wrap up things. You guys can let me know your thoughts on the deck below. And shout outs once again to Yuya for hooking me up with the gameplay as well as the deck profile. If you guys want to send me in any other variants of this, because I know there's probably going to be some crazy Link variant that someone works out with some of the newer support minus some of the newer support, because obviously it locks you at some point if you decide to play all the cards. Feel free to send it into asianreplays@gmail.com, or you can just send me it via the Discord into the Yu-Gi-Oh chat. But anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it, and if you're new here and you want to see more variants of this deck, make sure you guys subscribe with the bell notification on, and you will definitely see more in the future. And I'll catch you guys on the next video, and I'm out. Peace.